At the beginning of the Common Era, to the east of the Roman Empire, a city rose from the desert. A city which for 2,000 years has held a mysterious attraction. Its name conjures up both a glorious past and a tragic destiny. Vast necropolises housed the world of the dead, peopled with sculpted faces. Undeciphered vestiges which were yet to be understood. Her search will bring together an exceptional collection and reveal the identity of these great Palmyrene families, their history and their genealogy. For 2,000 years, the faces of Palmyra have re-emerged in plain sight, proof that the great city lives on through the traces left by its past inhabitants. In 2011, when the archaeologist came across these portraits carved in stone, she realized that no one had ever taken. In Palmyra, the world of the dead was everywhere. It surrounded the world of the living. Several necropolises circled the town, the most famous being the Valley of the Tombs. It is distinguished by its towers of varying height and its huge burial chambers, hypogea, and small temples. Tombs are hundreds of faces, portraits, but also scenes from daily life, family histories. They bear witness to a golden age in Palmyra. From the 1st to the 3rd century AD, like to go to Syria. The archaeological landscape offers a wealth of information, and hundreds of portraits are still buried in tombs which have not been excavated. But the war has changed everything. In 2015, Palmyra was bombed by the Islamic State several times, with the aim of destroying these remains. A few ruins still stand, but the majority near, a man who has inspired her throughout her research, Harald Ingold, a Danish archaeologist who led a dig in Palmyra between 1924 and 1925. He brought back several objects which constitute the main part of the Nie Carlsberg Glyptotek collection. These would What do this young woman's braids reveal? Which family did this man come from? Which tomb was he buried in? What does this crown tell us, or this expression? Every face holds clues, details, however tiny, which help advance the research. The fact these portraits were carved with such precision means they belonged to important families. Ordinary folk were not depicted, but rather buried directly in the sand or rock. In the Valley of the Tombs, the architecture of the towers and the burial chambers often denoted power and rivalry. From the 1st to the mid-2nd century AD, the richest families commissioned funerary towers several stories high. Built above an underground tomb and positioned at the highest point of the hill to be seen by all. The middle classes built hypogea, burial chambers carved into the rock. The more the walls were covered with sculptures and paintings, the more respectable the family, and the longer it would stand the test of time. Some chambers contained up to 400 portraits, carved over the generations. Towards the end of the 2nd century, temple tombs or temple houses were constructed, marrying Oriental with Greco-Roman architectural side of Syria. The caravans made the city's fortune. The Roman Empire opened the doors to a huge marketplace. But the crown jewel which facilitated Palmyra's great destiny was the water which bubbled up through the sand. In this inhospitable desert, the water made Palmyra highly attractive and essential. The caravan traders carried arms and knew all the dangers along the trade routes. They were the lifeblood of Palmyra and contributed to making the powerful families in the city rich. They were entrusted with the most precious merchandise. Becoming part of the Roman Empire was a great opportunity for Palmyra, and by the splendor of the decoration of their tombs. In their desire to bequeath all these portraits to posterity, were the Palmyrines looking to leave their mark on history at the height of their golden age? How do we see them 2,000 years later?
Palmyran portraits are very recognizable.
You had to negotiate access to water with them. You can't cross the desert without having access to wells. And this is precisely what made the fortune and wealth of the people of Palmyra.
Palmyrine family decided to build a tomb. It called on sculptors. They carved the portraits on the stone slabs which were used to close the entrance to the loculi, deep niches which housed the bodies of the dead. Each individual represented had to be named and linked to a family. Sometimes there is nothing more than a fragment. On several portraits, we can make out writing in different languages, including Aramaic. A dead the Elabel family. Every morsel retrieved is compared with existing signs. Built in the year 103 by 4 brothers, the Elabel Tower is one of the most famous in the Valley of the Tombs and one of the most studied. For archaeologists, it serves as a reference. Over its 4 floors, several epitaphs established a connection between family members. The reliefs and the ceilings were finely carved and painted. The exterior of the funerary tower was designed to assert the family's social status at the heart of the town's elite. The interior of the tombs was a reserved space, an intimate place where several generations were united for eternity. The Palmyrines lived in two parallel worlds. Publicly, they wanted to appear Roman, but as families, it was their traditional culture that was asserted in the details. The ability to accept and assimilate several cultures was essential for the inhabitants of the town. Their city was enriched by all the different influences from Mesopotamia and from the Arab and Greco-Roman culture. It was as if the whole world converged here. An important trading post with many cultures and great prosperity. At the beginning of the first millennium, the city experiences a great many changes. To the north of the oasis, a new town rose from the sand, traversed from east to west by a large avenue, with a long colonnade on either side. Several baths, a theatre, and a marketplace are built. Daily life was organized around this hub. The god Bol was the protector of the city. Called Bel by the Palmyrines because of the influence of neighboring Mesopotamia. He is often represented alongside other deities, the most well-known being Balshamin, Yaribol, Malakbel, and Aglibol, the moon god. Despite the ever-increasing Greco-Roman influence of the first 3 centuries, the city remained steeped in multiple faiths. Mirroring society, the tombs reflect the eclectic taste of the Palmyrines. As in the world of the living, they reveal a diversity in social conditions. A city world where every column, every little temple or tomb bears witness to the subtle intricacy of the blending of Syro-Mesopotamian and Greco-Roman beauty. Harold Ingolt was among the first to understand this diversity of knowledge when he entered the tombs of Palmyra in 1924. He brought back numerous notebooks conserved in Copenhagen in the Glyptoten, including one very rare piece. Allow her access to a place which is kept under close surveillance. At the time, the Danish archaeologist took pains to catalogue the position of each portrait in relation to its original tomb. For Rubina Raja, these boxes contain more than one answer to the questions she has been pondering. During the research, new details have emerged. Researchers and collectors have contacted Rubina to tell her about the existence of portraits she hasn't yet identified. It is time for her to go and see them. To this end, Rome is highly symbolic. The history of the Italian city is closely linked with that of Palmyra. For Rubina Raja, a trip to Rome is of the greatest significance. Right at the center of the ancient Roman Empire, which ruled over much of the world, or did the father want to be accompanied by his descendants, represented symbolically when he entered eternity? For Rubina Raja, it's a typically Palmyrine representation because the Romans hardly ever. She unearths several Palmyrene portraits, proof that this funerary art was in no way a minor genre. On the contrary, it is so remarkable from an archaeological viewpoint that many have been bought by the Vatican. From the 1st century AD, portrait sculpture followed trends, as in the rest of the Roman Empire. Between the years 50 and 150, men are often depicted beardless, with short hair falling lightly forwards. Later, they have beards or moustaches. Their hair is longer and curly. They wear a pleated tunic with a cloak draped over one shoulder, in the Roman style. As for the women, their rank is reflected in their jewelry. These jewels reveal the incredible luxury of the goods passing through Palmyra: fine pearl necklaces from the Persian Gulf, precious stones from India or Africa. It is time for her to go and see them. The increasing wealth of important families determined the architecture and the social structure of the city. In matters of trade, Palmyra enjoyed a certain degree of autonomy, although Rome kept a grip on the taxes and the fiscal status of the great trade. So the Palmyrenes become Roman citizens. In funerary art, the evolution can be seen particularly in the depiction of women. Adorned in rich fabrics, covered with jewels, they are carved with ever greater finesse. Often wearing traditional accessories, they seem very attached to their Eastern roots. The funerary portraits of women are highly detailed. They bear witness to a history of Palmyra where women made their mark. Although men ran the political and administrative life of the city, it was in fact a woman who tried to take over when the city was at the height of its power. Her name was Zenobia, and she helped to make Palmyra famous by defying the supreme authority, Rome. The Emperor Aurelian put an end to Zenobia's imperial ambitions by waging a bloody war against Palmyra. The city began to fall into decline. But Zenobia goes down in history as the heroine who dared pit herself against the most powerful empire in the world. Apart from her profile on a Palmyrene coin, no portrait sculpture of the self-proclaimed empress has been identified to this day, but she remains a legendary character. Stones, Zenobia has lived on in stories. Taken prisoner in Rome, there is no historical clue as to where she is buried. There are too many unknowns to allow us to piece together the story of this great Palmyrene family up to the fall of Zenobia and Palmyra at the very end of the 3rd century. Over time, one of the most beautiful ancient cities in the Middle East has been stripped of a large part of its heritage. Today, the funerary portraits are scattered, making work for the archaeologist and her team increasingly difficult. Jean-Baptiste Dion has come from Paris especially to decipher some new documents. Most refined, but they are also the last. With the decline of their city, the Palmyrines no longer carved busts of their dead. Among the final portraits is one well known to archaeologists, one of the best conserved, one of the most admired. The portrait of a woman, once more. Called the Beauty of Palmyra, one of the masterpieces of the Nie Carlsberg Glyptothek. From the beauty of Palmyra to Zenobia, women brought great depth to the history of Palmyra. Beautiful, mysterious. They perpetuated a legend which has survived for centuries and which outlives the great city in the desert. After it was conquered, Palmyra quickly lost its splendor. Other trade routes opened at the crossroads of the East and West. History could have stopped here, and despite being destroyed on many occasions, the city never died. It became the pearl of the desert, an arid land whose inhabitants transformed it into a wealthy oasis. The legend was born. Everyone wanted a slice of Palmyra, to share in the sophistication described by writers and artists. So the remains of the city became widely dispersed. A scattered community which complicates the archaeologist's task in the 21st century. The Beauty of Palmyra is one of the last busts from the golden age of the city. With all the adornments denoting great lineage, it shows to what extent the Palmyrines cultivated their multiple identities. After several months of collecting, comparing, and painstaking decrypting, Rabina Raja's team have compiled an inventory of nearly 3,700 pieces. As she succeeded in reuniting the most beautiful pieces of this vast, dispersed family, which has become like her own. This intimacy is the fruit of the archaeologist's determination, working tirelessly to grant these portraits their rightful place in great museums. After a first exhibition at the Getty Foundation in Los This is the reality of Palmyra today. But its legend has proved stronger and lives on. When they constructed their necropolises and commissioned the best sculptors to carve their portrait busts for almost 3 centuries, did the Palmyrines know what they were doing? What legacy they were hoping to leave? When we see such nobility in a world carved in stone, it seems they have bequeathed not just a family history, but one of a whole community, an eternal testimony to their time in the desert. Undoubtedly, they hoped that once carved in stone, neither wars nor sandstorms could erase them.
جولتنا في تدمر، المدينة التي ما زالت حجارتها تحكي مجدا لم يختفي. أرجو الاشتراك بالقناة وتفعيل الجرس لتكونوا أول من يعرف جولتنا الثانية. شاركونا في التعليقات ما هي المعالم التي أحببتوها والمعالم التاريخية في سوريا ودون أن نتكلم عنها. شكرا لكم، مشاهدة سعيدة.